Hello, everyone. My name is Marina Nemat. I was born in 1965 in Tehran, Iran. And back then, Iran was not an Islamic republic. We had a king, we called him the Shah. 98% of the population of Iran was and is Muslim. And the remainder 2% was and is Baha'i, Christian, Zoroastrian, and Jewish. I'm a Christian. I was born in a Christian family in Iran. During the time of the Shah, back then Iran was governed by secular laws. That means that men and women were equal according to the law. A woman could become a judge. A woman could even become the prime minister if she wanted to. I went to school. I was a good student. And I wanted to become a medical doctor. My dad was a ballroom instructor in Tehran. Oh, yeah, ballroom dancing in Tehran. And my mom was a hairdresser. So I literally grew up between the sounds of the cha-cha and the tango and women with really big poofy hair. We owned a cottage by the Caspian Sea where I spent my summers having fun. During the last summer, before the success of the revolution in 1978, I was 13. I was getting really interested in boys. I had a green bikini with white polka dots, and I would wear it on the beach, boys and girls together. We would take our boom boxes to the beach, and we would be dancing to the tunes of the Bee Gees. In my free time, I read Jane Austen and Ernest Hemingway, and I wanted to become a medical doctor. Every Thursday night, we watched the Donny and Marie Osmond show, and every Friday night, we watched The Little House on the Prairie, dubbed into Farsi. I had made all of my plans. I was going to go to medical school, marry Donny Osmond, and live happily ever after. It was a great plan. And then we got back from the cottage in 1978, and in my beautiful, normal neighborhood, where until yesterday people were shopping and having a good time, there was a tank parked at my door. I had never seen a tank. I asked my mom, what's that? She said, it's a tank. I said, oh, are they shooting a movie? No, this was no movie. This was the Iranian Revolution of 1979. I had no idea what was going on. So I asked a friend of mine what's going on, and he said, well, we have a revolution. The Shah is a dictator. And I had to ask, what's a dictator? And he said, if you speak against the government, you're going to be arrested, tortured, and executed. This was news to me. Long story short, the revolution succeeded. The Shah, the king, was forced into exile, and Ayatollah Khomeini, a religious leader turned political, he returned to Iran, and an Islamic republic was announced in my country. Now, at that point, if you ask people, what is an Islamic republic? People had voted for it, but nobody knew. Everybody said the Ayatollah has promised us freedom and democracy and all those good things that people want, and they had believed him. He was a man of God. He couldn't possibly be lying, could he? Well, he was. We didn't know that. We went back to school. They had been shut down for a while, and at the beginning, it was great. I mean, the school was still standing, and the teachers were there, but the great thing was that the old laws were out the window, the new laws were being written, so basically, there was no law. And if you're 13 years old and there's no law, that's the best thing that ever happened to you. So we were having a good time. We were reading and discussing. I mean, before the success of the revolution, we were basically gossiping about boys and friends at lunchtime. But now it was all about social justice. Suddenly, most of the cool kids, they were Marxists. I mean, being a Marxist during the Shah had been illegal, but now it had been, there was no law, so you could be anything you wanted. So people were reading and discussing and arguing, and it was exciting and interesting. But then things began to change. Now, I'm going to give you a footnote here. Horror in history doesn't happen overnight. It's not that you go to bed tonight and tomorrow you have Hitler, Stalin, Mao on your hands. No, it doesn't work that way. Horror in history happens little by little. So you lose your liberties little by little. And by the way, Hitler did not happen in the Middle East. Hitler happened in Germany, a country that had a democratic process in place. So if it could happen in Germany, it can happen anywhere, but there is something you and I can do about it. In Iran, people started losing their liberties. I mean, dancing became illegal, singing became illegal, holding your boyfriend's hand in public became illegal. Now, if that happens today, I mean, I'm 48. Do I look like I'm having fun? If having fun becomes illegal today, I'm not going to care. But my children are going to care because they are 20 and 24, and you are going to care, and you are going to be on the streets protesting. And that's exactly what my generation did. Now, at the same time, None of it was being reported. I mean, we were on the streets of Tehran as early as 1980, yelling and screaming against the Islamic Republic, which had not delivered the freedom that it had promised, but the world didn't hear it. There was no Facebook, there was no internet. All foreign journalists had been expelled from Iran. Of course, the world did hear about the American hostages. All of them survived, by the way, because we know, Americans are very important, and there's no arguing that. Canadians are important too. I'm a Canadian. So, the movie has been made about it, Argo and all of that, but at the same time, my friends and I, we were on the streets of Tehran being shot at, and nobody reported it. I was arrested on January 15, 1982. I was at home, 9, 10 o'clock at night. I was about to take a bath. I was 16. The doorbell rang. My mom called me, and I opened the bathroom door, and there were 2 guns, big guns, pointed in my face. People have asked me, were you scared? No, I wasn't. And that's not because I'm brave. I'm afraid of cockroaches. No, I entered a state of shock. A state of shock is like body armor. It goes on, click, and you're in. It's a gift from God, and it doesn't let you feel. I was looking at my mom and dad, and they were crying, and I was thinking, why are you crying? No big deal. I'm just getting arrested. So they drove me north to Evin prison, which is 100% operational right now as we speak. And I was taken along hallway after hallway, made sit down. Somebody called my name, took me for interrogation. They asked me, have you attended rallies? I said, yeah, I have attended rallies. Everybody knows I attended rallies. My friends know, my family knows, the principal knows, the teachers know. Have you written articles against the government? Yes, I have written articles. Then they asked me information that I didn't really have. I mean, they were asking about somebody I didn't really know that well. I didn't have her address or phone number. I mean, if I did, I would have given it. Then they took me to another room, and they took off my blindfold, and I was in a room with 2 men, Ali and Hamid. They handcuffed me. When they handcuffed me, they realized my hands are going to slide out of the cuffs, so they put both of my wrists together, and as the cuff clicked, I literally heard my right wrist crack. And the torture had not even begun. Then they tied me to the bare wooden bed. I was lying down on my stomach. They lashed the soles of my feet with a length of cable. Why do they do that? Because your nerve ends are in your feet. With every strike of the lash, my nervous system would explode. Then it would be magically put back together, and there was no end in sight. I had forgotten how to count, how to think, how to pray. Why do they torture people? Is torture to get information? No, it's not. I signed everything they gave me without even reading it. Is torture to kill people? No, it's not, because there are more economical ways to kill people. They would just shoot you. What is torture for? Torture is designed to break the human soul. When they succeed, they stop. If they don't succeed, you die by execution. Then they sent me to a cell block. They gave me a death sentence. It was reduced to life in prison. And eventually, a few months later, I was again called in for interrogation. My interrogator, Ali, was there. And he looked at me straight in the eye and said, listen carefully. You had a death sentence. It's been reduced to life in prison. And you're going to be here forever, and nobody cares. That much I knew. The world didn't seem to care at all. And then he said, you're going to become my wife, or I will arrest your boyfriend and your parents. Is that clear? Oh, yeah, it was clear. I knew exactly that my family was in danger. So I said, fine, I'll do anything you want me to do. I will marry you. I will do anything. He said, you have to convert to Islam. I said, fine. He even changed my name. One day I looked around me. I had lost my friends, my family, my freedom, my dignity, and my religion. I was being raped over and over again in solitary confinement, and it was absolutely legal. All of this is not unusual at all in Evin prison. Eventually, I was released. It's a long story. You can read my books. Eventually, I was released 2 years, 2 months, 12 days after I had been arrested. I was just shy of 19. I sat at the dinner table with my parents, and they talked about the weather. Yeah, about the weather, because nobody wanted to talk about it. It's difficult to talk about torture and stuff like that. But that situation is ongoing. When I was released, I wrote 2 books, Prisoner of Tehran and After Tehran, and that was my way to bear witness, because the girl I was before Evin is dead. And the person that I have become is a witness, no more, no less. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, but it doesn't matter, because before that, I am a witness. I live to testify. Many of my friends are buried in mass graves, and I'm still standing here. That means something. That means that my life belongs to them more than it belongs to me. Since President Rouhani came into power recently in Iran, a few political prisoners were freed. I mean, he has put on this beautiful show for the world. He says he's a reformist. You know, he wants to talk to the West. I mean, this beautiful masquerade has been put on. And they did release a few prisoners. But at the same time, since Rouhani came into power, more than 80 prisoners have been executed. I mean, the number of executions has actually increased under the reign of Mr. Rouhani. But of course, we are not going to give up. Activism does mean something. A man named Hamid Qasemi Shal was in Evin prison for 5 years. He was arrested in 2008 and was recently released. I campaigned for his release for 3 years. He was on death row most of the time. His brother died under torture in Evin prison. For the first 2 years, his family were threatened that if they go public, Hamid would die. But after 2 years, his wife thought, you know what, the heck with it. I mean, it's already been through 2 years and he's already on death row. So I mean, she decided to do something about it. She called me. I was sitting in my car, it was a winter's day, and she said, Marina, help me. So we went public. I mean, we traveled the world together. We knocked on every door. We saw every politician in different countries. We talked to Amnesty International. It became an international case. But still, there was no sign. I mean, 5 years is a long time. But finally, after all of that hard work, recently, just a few weeks ago, Hamid was released. And we were at Pearson Airport in Toronto to greet him. So if you think that making noise doesn't do anything, it is hard work, it's grueling work, and there are days that you lose hope. But you know what? Look at that woman's face standing behind me. That is Antonella. She had not smiled for 5 years, and now she's smiling. Thank you so much.